My name is Karthik, and I'm a fellow at the Berkeley Institute for Data Science. I'm an ecologist by training, but for the last few years, I've been working on a project to make science a little bit more open and transparent, mostly around communities of researchers that work with R. And so the motivation for this project mostly comes from my own struggle getting other people to share their data or code. And David Donahoe said it best: if you publish a paper and that's the only thing that came out of your research, that is not the scholarship, it's just the advertisement. Unless you share everything, you haven't actually put your research out there. And on top of that, we're also now changing the way we do science. We're not all collecting our own data. During my PhD, I collected all of my own data, but right now, assets that are public and open. And so Tony Hay best described this as the fourth paradigm of science. We're all doing data-intensive science. It's very common in NGS folks, or NGS communities, but it's also becoming increasingly common in communities that typically don't do this sort of thing. The biggest challenge, where people got this data and what they've done to it, is impossible to figure out almost all the time. And we're trying to get around this black box problem a little bit. And there's two reasons. One is, if people share their data and code, it's very easy to pick out trivial problems pretty early on. If Reinhard Rogoff shared the Excel spreadsheet very early in the review process, they wouldn't have had all the embarrassment. But it's really not just about increasing transparency and reproducibility, but it's also about helping people do better science and do faster science. If you can look to move forward fairly quickly. That I started with two other postdocs a couple of years ago, and our motivation is very simple. We're building tools for researchers to access any kind of text from journals that is available, also deposit them somewhere at the end of the research process. I really don't have time to go over all the tools that we have, but we have about 60 or so tools completed right now, and we have many more in the pipeline. And just to give you like a very trivial example of the kinds of things that you can do, if you're, for example, a natural resource economist, you can run these 4 lines of code and get all the fish landing data for every commercially viable species of fish for every country in the world from the FAO. These data and pull down climate projections from the IPCC for whatever year, for whatever model, and try to make predictions for what would happen to these populations over time. This is just one example. There's a lot more genomic examples that would be exciting to this crowd, but I didn't have a chance to pull one of those together. So we're not only helping people access data, but we're also helping them understand these data. We have a whole bunch of open source. They primarily work with spatial data, but we're expanding the kinds of things that you can do, including working with interactive plots. But most importantly, we want people to deposit the data after they're done with it. So the biggest complaint when PLOS said everybody should deposit at least the final data set that went into making your figures, and people complained that this takes time away from research. It's like, come on, really? Because if you can write 2 lines of code to fit a model, you can write 3 more lines of code at the end to just create an object on Figshare, but give it a title, a description, and then upload the data set that can go right back into your document. And so this pretty much captures what we do. R already has a pretty rich ecosystem of tools by itself. On the left, we've made it possible for you to get primary data for your own new projects, or supplementary data from a bunch of different sources. And once you've completed your project, you can then go deposit the data, get a DOI, drop it back in your document. We also integrate with Git directly from R, and we can also help you version your data, just like you can version your code and refer to a particular commit hash. And so what we're really trying to do is get people away from submitting one research paper and actually sharing everything that they produce. And this project is very generously funded by the Sloan Foundation, so if you see them, please say thank you to them from us. But with that, I'll stop and take any questions.